Welcome back, everybody, into Bill's Chat. I am Josh McCarty. With me, as always, is Luka. And Luka, our least favorite show of the year, has come. It is time to talk about the end of the Buffalo Bills season. How are you doing?
Um, Parental advisory. There could be a lot of bad words in this one. We'll just see where it goes. Full disclosure to everyone, Josh and I had to spend about 90 minutes or so before recording this and hitting the record button just to get our own initial venting and stuff. And we will probably be discussing a lot of that again. And it will raise the same probably escalated language and noise that it did during our conversation moments. But I will say I hate that this is an annual show. It feels like, and yet this one's got a unique feel to it in the sense of, this is far from the shock of disaster that was 13 seconds. This is far from last year's AFC championship and how that one felt, in my opinion, at least, where um, I will say I'm part of me wonders if it's just because it was the first game of the weekend and like it's being a Saturday game, for instance, and things like that, and coming up short on a Saturday, you don't have the Sunday scaries. Two, this is a holiday week we're coming up on, so I wouldn't even have the Monday issue in the first place. But you can kind of relax and decompress naturally at your own speed with this one. So I woke up this morning and I feel a little bit more level-headed than I usually am after a loss, for instance. And just when you look back, and we'll obviously discuss things, when you look back at this game, it truly is a weird one in the sense of there's a way where you can paint this game and truly scratch your head as to how the hell did the Bills lose this one. But then also there's clear reasons as to why the Bills lost this one. And the bringing those two things together is just, it's a weird way for the season to end. And I will say, right off the bat, to not only lose this game, but in the time from driving home, that for me was 12 minutes or so, to then learn that Bo Nix fractured his ankle on top of it. So it's like both teams lost that day. What a weird feeling that I think also kind of, what do I want to call it? Like almost like capped the emotions of the loss in itself during the game and immediately after. Like once you learned of Bo Nix's injury, I feel like maybe some are with me, some are not. But once I learned of Bo Nix's injury, it truly just shifted to like, well, nobody won there. Like, just like, this is a weird feeling to let that be in the past. And after a night's sleep, there are still frustrating points that we will discuss, but I don't find myself sitting here being overly emotional about the loss. And it's just kind of a reality of a yet another year coming up short in the big moment. And there's just so many reasons as to why it is, but I'm not, bent out of shape against the NFL or whatever. It just sucks. That's the simple thing of it. It just sucks being a Bills fan in this moment and not having the season continue due to what transpired.
Yeah, we did sleep on it. It is Sunday, very early Sunday afternoon, as Luca mentioned. And so, unlike most post game shows where we record that day, we normally record on Sundays. So we decided to get it out early in the day. I think probably because we were both going through the same thing, just kind of walking around, channeling our thoughts. This game had something for everybody, and I mean that from a Bills fan perspective. If you want to say the quarterback comes up small in big moments, I think you can have your day here. If you want to say Josh Allen doesn't have enough help, and you can look at the players he was trying to complete passes to at the very end, you can have your moment here. If you're mad at the GM for the talent he put together, if you're mad at the coach, you can look at the way they handled the end of the first half. If you're mad at the NFL and think it's a conspiracy against the Bills, you certainly have your beef with how that game ended, and we're going to get into all of it. We're not going to leave anything unturned. This isn't going to be your normal post game show. I don't think. What would you think about the decision in the second quarter? No, I mean the season's over. So where I want to start, Luca, and I think this is why I'm so down today. I don't have the energy to sit here and hate watch the rest of the playoffs. Like I know there was a segment of Bills fans that when they heard the Bo Nix injury was just like, "Oh great, now the Patriots have an easier path." I don't care. Uh, Josh Allen's going to be 30 this year. Um, I I don't have the energy to care who wins if it's not us. We didn't win. Simple as that. He's been elite since 2020. It's going to be 2020 the end of 2026 the next time he gets a shot at this, and still no Super Bowl to show for it. Whether the Patriots get their 7th ring or the Seahawks get one with Sam Darnold and he's the first one from that quarterback class to get one despite being in a class with Baker, Lamar, and Josh, I don't care. It's not the Bills, and that's all that matters to me. The second thing I'm left with, and this is where I want to start the show off, and this is a very big picture thought. I do think when the dust settles and we're able to look back at this with no emotion, well, I mean emotions, but not like in the heat of the moment emotions. I think this will go down as a bigger missed opportunity than 13 seconds, given the landscape of everything, given what the rest of the field looked like. I'm well aware of the roster deficiencies on the Bills. I'm well aware of all the things we talked about going into this game, the 6-day rest versus the 13-day rest, the injuries at wide receiver, the injuries to Poyer. But when you watch the game play out, it certainly didn't look like the Bills were the outmanned team. It looked like the Bills were the team that was significantly better, that kept shooting themselves in the foot, keeping the game close enough for it ultimately to be in the hands of officials in the NFL that we know are inconsistent. I think, Luka, when the Bills lost in Kansas City in 2021, I left that day heartbroken, but hopeful. I was like, that sucks, but we are unquestionably one of, if not the very best teams in football, and we just caught an all-time bad break, an all-time bad beat. Now it's 2026, and I have almost no faith that they're going to get to a Super Bowl, even with Josh Allen. And after 13 seconds, it wasn't a matter of if, but when and how many. And now I'm, you kind of said this off the air. I won't steal your thunder, but I'll have to see it to believe it. They're quickly running out of time. The injuries are already starting to catch up with the quarterback. The roster construction is something we're going to get into. But now sitting here in 2026, not losing to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, but throwing up all over yourselves and losing to Bo Nix, um, I can't sit here and tell you with a straight face. I'd love to tell you different. I can't sit here and tell you with a straight face, folks, that I firmly believe this team is eventually going to get over the hump.
I Yeah, it truly is that see it to believe it at this moment in time. Your quarterback is going to cross that bridge that is the 30-year-old age. It's a general benchmark that people utilize as, you're entering the back end of your prime and or even entering the downturn of your prime, for sure, in the sense of you're leaving that prime. For Josh Allen, I don't believe it's the latter. I think he is still in his prime. Just the way we view Josh Allen's output might start changing. But again, it feels like, Josh Allen in a vacuum, we will probably see the same individual next season and in capabilities of the same individual. Where the see it to believe it truly does come from, though, is there need to be changes, but I don't even know truly how drastic and or what they are. That is truly the code to be cracked. You can clean house, you can do massive personnel changes, you can do, significant, but, small amounts of personnel changes with some coaching changes. I mean, we just learned Aaron Kromer, I believe, is retiring now. That is not fun to learn day after. Aaron Kromer, I think on this show for sure, is well documented as we are fans of. And he is a key component of why the offensive line has been progressed and good as it is. So that is significant in that regard. But it's just leaving that game. You nailed it in the sense of how have we gotten to this point where, You punt the ball 0 times. You score 30 points on a respectable defense. I'm going to call them respectable because I think there are at least 2 or 3 that I would call better in this league, both from a personnel standpoint and just production standpoint. But you get 30 points on this team. You are able to drive on them when it feels like you want to. You're able to run the ball on the quote unquote number 2 rushing defense in the league for 183 yards, and yet also do all of the things possible to not put the game away because you turned it over a total of 5 times. I'll call it 4 plus 1 because the 5th, being the most noteworthy one to a lot of individuals, was one that I think was the least issue of the 5. Just not necessarily for where it happens in the game, of course, but more so because it's essentially an arm punt. If you really break it down, because say that ball is incomplete rather than picked, you're punting the ball in worst case. Well, not worst case, but say it's a touchback, the ball's going exactly where it was in the first place. So, it's one of those things though, where I couldn't believe that this team is doing what it is in both the highs and lows right now. And we're playing Bo Nix, who Josh, leaving that performance from Bo Nix. Bo Nix had a good day, not a great day. He capitalized a couple times against guys who were called in, immediately following injury timeouts. And, credit to Sean Payton for recognizing it. Everyone understood what was going on. Good play calls and key moments that ultimately awarded them 14 points against, shit players. But Bo Nix, to me, that game and performance was eerily resembling a Russell Wilson-like performance, in the sense of, if he couldn't hit a flat or throw a moonshot for either PI draw and or open receiver, nothing was happening. There was maybe 1 or 2 passes where Bo Nix hit a receiver, 10 to 15 yards downfield. And that was just, they were so open, you couldn't miss it. But the amount of dirted, 5, 10, 15-yard balls that Bo Nix threw, and then also the ability to run, but not the greatest ability to run. He was their leading attempt individual on the ground game. It was just like, yeah, I mean, they traded bad Russell Wilson for young Russell Wilson all of a sudden. That is what they were doing at quarterback. You just lost to that. It's confusing and frustrating, but also, like you said, it's not a heartbreaking thing. It just now fully cements the thought of, I don't know truly what it's going to take to get over the line beyond significant changes around 17. That where you start, where you go, I don't know what those answers are, but that's the only thing that can change this, or else we're going to continue to have these annual episodes and fans are going to continually have these, situations where they come up short in the end, whether it's in the divisional, in the championship, or God forbid they finally make that Super Bowl. It even feels like, for instance, if you want to talk about the opportunity of this season, which I think you are absolutely spot on with, the opportunity felt as great as ever this year. If they make the Super Bowl, sitting here Sunday, your 3 options are going to be the Seahawks, the Bears, or the Rams. I don't know if I can confidently tell you they would be, I would feel comfortable playing any of those 3 teams. I don't, those are complete teams. They are well-coached, complete teams with a good or great quarterback. So I just, it's, I don't know what it's going to take at this moment. I think it's going to take a lot, but again, the severity of what that is change-wise, where you start, where you go, whether it's coach, whether it's front office, whether it's, coaching staff around the coach, whether it's the a huge overhaul of personnel player wise, whether it's, just 4 or 5, a handful of them, how you allocate those resources. I mean, this offseason is going to be one in where I feel like it's going to be both the same old thoughts, but then also there's going to be, I think the Bills are going to be under the biggest microscope they ever have going into an offseason, in the sense of the moves and or the lack of moves is going to be highlighted tenfold, because we are truly now in a Groundhog's Day situation of, if you do not change anything, you will be rinsing and repeating the same end result. And that is just not good enough when you have, a Josh Allen and a fan base that crave a title the way that we do.
Yeah, and I do look forward to even later in this show kind of talking about what we want to see from this team. As of recording, we have yet to see anything from Schefter or Rappaport that says Brandon Beane or Sean McDermott are safe or anything like that. I think that's a little surprising. I would have expected to see something like that, and I think that the fact that Tim Graham pointed that out is at least notable because for my money, Tim Graham is as plugged in as anybody to the Bills. I kind of want to start from the end and work backwards, and let's get into what happened in overtime. But I think what happened in overtime has a large segment of the fan base feeling like the Bills got cheated, and I hear that. I'm old enough to have lived through the Music City Miracle. If you're a diehard hockey fan, you remember no goal that ended a Stanley Cup. We've seen plenty of instances in the past where you feel like your team got cheated by the refs. And I one thing I will say right off the bat is I acknowledge NFL officiating is poor, inconsistent, and you can see one play that looks exactly similar to another play interpreted two different ways by two different sets of officials. And whoever the mouthpiece on whatever network it is that's supposed to explain it will talk to you as if you're not supposed to remember the other thing happened. I hear everybody's frustration with that. It is my absolute least favorite thing about this sport. And I say all of that to tell you that I can't get on board with the officials cost the Bills the game last night. And here's the reason why. The Bills lost the game by 3 points to the Denver Broncos. And I have 10 things that happened that were absolutely self-inflicted that could have been avoided. First Broncos drive of the game, Larry Ogunjobi jumps off sides on a play that R.J. Harvey fumbles. Larry Ogunjobi plays defensive tackle. There's not a player in the entire stadium that has a better view of the ball being snapped than a defensive tackle, and he jumps off sides for no reason whatsoever, and it's a fumble that's taken off the board. Guess how many points the Broncos get on that drive? 3 points. The Bills go up 7-3 and then hold the Broncos to a punt. They get the ball back and they're driving, and James Cook fumbles the ball. That's 2. Cam Lewis comes out. Cam Lewis is playing out of his mind in place of Jordan Poyer. He comes out for one play. Darnell Savage comes in for reasons that only you and I can guess, because up until this point, Darnell Savage was not the next guy up. It was Jordan Hancock, but because he played so poorly last week against the Jaguars, the Bills decided they didn't want to see Jordan Hancock. So Darnell Savage goes in and looks like he's never seen a double move in his life and gets roasted by little Jordan Humphrey for a touchdown on the one play that he was on the field. And then we get to the end of the half after the Bills give up that touchdown to Darnell Savage. There's 16 seconds left. The Bills have no timeouts and they have 70 yards to go. And they come out, they don't kneel, they run a play out of shotgun. And Josh Allen, the multi-million-dollar quarterback, takes off running. At that point, he has to know that he's not getting any points. He gets hit, he fumbles. David Edwards jumps on the ball. It bounces out. A Bronco recovers it in field goal range, and Will Lutz gets a free 3 points for the Broncos. And then the Bills come out in the second half, down 20-10, ready to take momentum again. Tell me if you heard this before. Josh Allen gets hit. Josh Allen fumbles. Another free 3 points for the Broncos. The Bills actually battle back, get a touchdown, and then on the next Broncos drive, after cutting it to one score, they get a gift with Bo Nix throwing a ball right to Deion Walker, who intercepts it, and then Josh Allen looks deep to Curtis Samuel, underthrows him, that's going to be a theme tonight, and gives it an opportunity for a Broncos safety to make a great play on the ball and turns a drive that was in Broncos territory into 0 points. All of this happened in a game that the Bills lost by 3 points, by the way. And then, at the end of regulation, when the Bills are up by 1, and if they score a touchdown, they go up by 8, Josh Allen misses a throw to Dawson Knox, who would have walked in for a touchdown. I do see Cover 1 said that if he put the ball in a better spot, it could have been knocked down. I hear that, but it still is on the resume. I think the bigger miss is what happened on third down, where he throws it low to Shakir. Shakir completes the play and finds his way into the end zone, but it goes down as an incomplete pass, and that ultimately leads to the Bills only going up by 4, and then the Broncos come down and get the go-ahead touchdown. And then in overtime, the Bills do what we all wanted them to do: stop the Broncos 3 and out. And now all you have to do if you're Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen is go down and get points. On their second to last play in overtime, Josh Allen misses a wide open Mecole Hardman. They were not on the same page. Surprise, surprise, Brandon Beane. Mecole Hardman and Josh Allen are not on the same page. Hardman rounds off his route. Josh Allen expects him to cut it harder. The ball goes incomplete. Good effort by Hardman, not complete. And then finally, the play that we're going to talk about till we're blue in the face. Josh Allen hits Brandon Cooks deep on third down, and Brandon Cooks catches it, and then he doesn't catch it, and then it's intercepted. You guys can debate that. I don't have energy for it, but the fact is Brandon Cooks did not do enough to complete the catch and left it up to interpretation of the officials. There are 10 examples of the ways that the Bills shot themselves in the foot yesterday to ultimately lose a game by 3 points. And Luka, that is why I cannot get on board with making the referees enemy number one after that game.
The referees to me are barely on the list. The referees are only on the list, and they're probably, we'll call them I'm roughly trying to come up with enemies and in my head this very second. I'll put them number 6, just down the list. And the only reason the only thing, and as you said it perfectly, was they've always been inconsistent. They've always been. And that's just something fans need to accept if they still haven't gotten there. And the best part is any fan that's yelling at referees right now, and anyone on the X machine or in person, having discussions with their friends, whatever, that is still living in this reality of blaming the refs for stuff. It's an emotional reaction that I will always just let subside and move on. Conversations were had yesterday among friends and stuff that I was not going to chime in on because I understand that that seems to be their natural reaction to react in such a way. I get it. But those are also people that I know and understand the concept of refs just are inconsistent if they were to take their emotional connection to the game out of it, right? Anyone that was not a Bills fan in that moment could understand that officials are inconsistent, and you never want to leave things in the hands of the officials. That's just, I feel like we have said that numerous times. My only issue in that game is the inconsistency within the game itself when you had one that is debatable, but the whistle was not, was tucked away. The flag was kept in the pocket for Riley Moss on Brandon Cooks earlier in the game. And then all of a sudden you do have a flag, which, full disclosure, does not matter since Joey Bosa is an idiot, but Taron Johnson does something in a very similar fashion to Riley Moss on Brandon Cooks. Taron Johnson on, I believe it was Cortland Sutton in that instance, and they do throw the flag on that one. That's a microscope example of inconsistency from the officials. But this game is far from that to blame, and let alone this game should not have been in a place where officials are even making the decisions that they are in overtime. Overtime should not be happening in this game if the Bills just do their job. And that's, you highlighted so many of them. I mean, I brought up the stat that the Bills had a total of 11 drives in this game, including overtime. They did not punt the ball once. That's, to sit there and realize how insane that is. 4 drives in the first half, 6 in the second half, 1 in overtime. To not punt once in a game where you let up 33 but scored 30 is crazy. That's an advanced dig in the history archives of the NFL. I'd love to know how many other times that has happened, where both teams score 30 plus and one of the teams did not punt a single time. It would have to involve either score after score after score, and or the situation you have with the Bills where it's truly a score and or turnover ending every single drive while also awarding these things. I mean, the crazy part too is if you want to sit here and blame the defense, it's very just to do so. But when you really until that touchdown drive with 4 minutes, I think it was 4 minutes and 6, according to this thing I'm looking at here, that touchdown drive for Denver, they only had a total of 2 first downs. That's, I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want from a team than 2 total first downs through 4 drives before then the touchdown drive, which, credit to Denver, was a drive that was great. But at the same time, what happened on that drive that all of a sudden you're incapable of doing your job on the defensive side? And that's where the argument begins. There were definitely moments where you're like, what is this defense trying to achieve? But all of these things are way more examples of how this game went wrong than simple official decisions that didn't go the Bills' way. Like, that's, you accept officials for what they are. And I will say too, on top of it all, I think the problem is you have people like Florio out there bringing up the most valid argument. Bills fans are highlighting, for instance, in the catch, we'll highlight one, the catch, or interception, Brandon Cooks overtime. Bills fans are highlighting that and comparing it to Cole Bishop, Xavier Worthy, last year's AFC Championship. Okay. Those are not apples to apples to me. I think the situation of what happened in those moments and everything of that such, those are far from apples to apples. The closest example as to what you can maybe pull from in a different result of the play is actually, ironically enough, someone who is just throwing a lit match on gasoline. That is Mike Florio, where earlier this season in a Steelers-Ravens game, there was the Aaron Rodgers interception, not interception, catch completed, knee is down, that they ruled in favor of the Steelers, who end up going to win that game. That is the closest apples to apples you have. And that is where the inconsistency of all of this goes. And that, I think that is the prime example of point of frustration from McDermott. I'm imagining, which, shout out McDermott he'll probably get a small fine for calling it out, but so be it. Like, this is where I'm probably the most frustrated with officials, the inconsistencies, but also McDermott's point of, why in the hell, in the biggest key moment of this game so far, are we expediting and rushing through this situation to not ensure we got it right? If you have talking heads who are unsure on both sides of the spectrum live during the broadcast going, I don't know where this stands right now. Your official, I forget who CBS hires, is this Sterator, but he's saying one thing. It felt like Nance and Romo might have been wishy-washy on it, but they were just going to go with the expert, quote unquote, that was there. And then from there, like, fans and everyone just don't truly understand what it's going on. And then I will say, in live time, out loud, I go, oh my God, he caught it. It felt like that in live time. But of course, then I will say, I'm on the side of that's an interception. You do not complete the process of the catch with your back hitting the ground. If, for instance, the example is Brandon Cooks hits that, the ball is loosened up and it ended up in the ground, that's an incomplete pass. It felt like that's the way in which the defender then is capable of having the ball in his hands. He rolls over, ball doesn't touch the ground. That is an interception, folks. I don't think that even gets overturned with a review. What I'm frustrated with, and what McDermott's frustrated with, is the fact that they didn't slow it down. I mean, they were so quick to get the next play going. I don't understand why, with how critical of a moment that is. And that just, I think all of that is encapsulated in the boiling point to why then people want to lean on that as the victim number, or excuse number one, or enemy number one, whatever you want to call it. It's far down the list of reasons and causes we lose this. I mean, we'll eventually have to do our games balls and game checks. Number one person that is absolutely capable of being a game check person in our segment, Josh, is Josh Allen. Like, if you, as experienced as you are in those moments and been there, done it as Josh Allen, if you don't run upfield for no reason to end the first half, and then also don't have the presence of mind to be like, just make sure I don't turn the ball over, don't put the ball in harm's way, and you are holding it in the manner of which you are, that it was so easily to be swatted away and turned over. I mean, this is a different game. Let's say the series of events still take place because that truly was a turnover. Just get the field goal unit on, kick the ball. It's the most, nothing else really transpired after that differently. Again, universes can change, outcomes can change based on points and blah, blah, blah. Fully subscribe to that thought. But let's say that's the most in a vacuum situation where you just handed them 3 points. Let's say the second half transpires the way it does. That field goal you have to settle for because of a dirted ball to Shakir due to the pressure causing Allen to hitch that ball. That field goal goes up. You go up 7. Denver drives down with 4:06 left in the game, 3 minutes and 11 seconds, scores that touchdown. It's a tie game. Josh Allen's getting the ball back with 55 seconds and 3 timeouts to lead on a game-winning field goal drive. You like everything about that. But Josh Allen, with 16 seconds and no timeouts, decides to take the open field and run with the ball like he's Shady McCoy or Anquan Bolden, and it gets swatted out of his hands. That's mind-blowingly dumb. That is not top, that's not MVP quarterback things. That's not, you don't see that from people like that. And for some reason, he thought that was the thing to do there. Look, emotions of the game, he sees no one open because no one is open in that moment. Great. Run upfield, take a slide. It's essentially a non-loss yardage kneel down, go into halftime, accept it for what it is. You're down 7 points. Like, you need to be composed in those moments. And Josh Allen has a track record of not. And he once again showed in moments he could not compose himself enough to understand the level of needed. And I love that. I mean, I don't love this, but I watched, I think it was the Green Light podcast with one of the
Chris Long.
Yeah, thank you, Chris Long. And I was going to say Long Brothers because I can't ever remember which one he is. Chris Long. He made a comment, in his preview where he's like, this feels more so of a game than even like the Jags, where it's like Josh just needs to know when taking the tackle and loss and or whatever is absolutely fine, because if you're punting, that punts are not losses in this game. Punts, that is not a loss in this game. And the irony is there were no punts for the Bills in this game, but the punts are not losses because you're punting it to Bo Nix and that offense who cannot control the ground game against you, which one of the few matchups that a team does not have the resources to control the ground game for you or against you. Like, it's asinine that the quarterback lets you down in these key moments. And through, I mean, the layup or the open touchdown to Curtis Samuel that he is incapable of throwing and leading the receiver. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen at 10% more health, we'll call it, just because I'm imagining health played a factor in him laying Cooks up short when he is open downfield as well. Like, Josh Allen hits those passes. He lasers, as Chris Sims loves to say, lasers that pass into an open Curtis Samuel. That's a touchdown. The Knox one, there's people out there, as you mentioned, that are saying he had to put it in that location. Knox gets a finger on it. I'm not expecting Knox to come down with that ball. That is over his head. But I feel like Allen in most other circumstances hits those passes. And on the day, due to whatever reasons were going on, whether it's health, composure, anything, Allen was coming up short. And you're not in this game in the fashion you are without Josh Allen. But Josh Allen also is a very, very key contributor as to why the Bills lost this game. It's an incredible fact of this game that we can sit here, and that is extremely valid. I don't want to sit and hear from anyone on either extreme side of the spectrum when it comes to Josh Allen following this game, because this needs to be a game where people recognize that Josh Allen is absolutely the cause for why they were in this and capable of doing things that they were to, continuously, whether take the lead and or, force overtime, whatever it is. He is the sole proprietor as to why they were able to do it, but he is also the reason that they were in those situations in the first place. The only outlier of that is James Cook needs to not fumble there. Like, buddy, what the hey, yeah, ball protection. I think it's funny how it felt like it hadn't happened in a while. But the James Cook was fumbling the ball earlier this season. He had 6 fumbles going into the season. I don't think any of them happened after, let's say, week 10. I don't know what the actual stat is, but it did feel like it had been a while. And a buddy of mine in the basement when I was watching had said, man, that's crazy. He doesn't do that. How many fumbles does he really even have on the season? And I literally went 5 or 6, I'm pretty sure. And he looked at me in disbelief. And then on cue, come back from commercial, they popped the thing, 7th fumble of the season, and he was in disbelief. It's like, no. That was kind of an issue with his early on, especially. I remember one game he fumbled twice in it. Oh, he did fumble in the Steelers game where he hit his own knee. So that was later than week 10. But anyways, it's you continuously, shoot yourself in the foot and screw up. You shouldn't. 5 turnovers, 4, we'll call 4 because overtime. 4 turnovers in a game. Like, you shouldn't even be forcing overtime. But because you have Josh Allen, you're capable of it. But again, Josh Allen's the cause for 3 of those. So, and the sole cause, well, the strip sack fumble, maybe a protection issue was there as well. Was that, correct me, was that when we had Shakir randomly in one of those plays tight to chip and stuff?
Yeah.
It's like, why are you chipping Shakir one?
What are we doing?
Why? They did it again in overtime, I want to say, and luckily that was the Ray Davis first down. That's what it was. And again, I'm like, why is Shakir of all people, your guy lined up tight on tackle to help chip and pass pro? Like, I'm assuming you're trying to get them on a personnel mismatch somewhere, and that's they're from overhead. They're seeing 3 receivers or whatever the actual personnel packages, and then all of a sudden they line up, and you're like, oh, this is weird, like creating mismatch. But again, sometimes you're overthinking it if you're doing shit like that. Like, I don't get that at all. But the officials and the blame of this game is so far from the officials to me that and even for that matter, McDermott, that I don't like seeing that stuff out there in the space where people want to post their flag to the same old officials came up and conspiracy theory or whatever. It's like, no, like the reality of this situation is Josh Allen and the Bills players on the field put themselves in a position to continuously lose this game, and or then Josh Allen continuously got them back in the game, got them the lead, and or tied it back up to get to overtime, whatever it is, but then would fall up. They could never get that separating factor to truly get the win. They had to get in their own way to screw it back up. So that is what happened in this game, and that is the reality of the situation.
Yeah, Josh Allen, I mean, I feel like every time you come on here after a loss, you almost have to do the disclaimer. Like, does it need to be said? There's a pic. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a picture of Josh Allen behind me. There's a picture of him behind me. There's one on this wall you can't see that Luka got me as a gift of Josh Allen hurdling over a Chiefs defender that is actually signed by Josh Allen. If you look behind Luka, there's a Josh Allen jumping over Anthony Barr his rookie year. He is my favorite athlete that's ever played sports. It's not even close. And nobody is saying that the Bills need to go out and trade Josh Allen and sign Malik Willis and then see what draft pick they can get this off. No. Having Josh Allen on your team is a massive advantage. He has set the expectation to here because he is one of 2 or 3 or 4, however many you want to quantify, cheat codes in the NFL that no matter what else is going on, your team has a chance because he's on your team. End of sentence, as Stephen A. Smith would say. We all understand that. Josh Allen's standard is here, and he played well below his standard yesterday. To Luka's point, he's one of the few human beings on earth that was capable of pulling his team out of the hole that he dug them yesterday. So you can take that however you want to take it, but Josh Allen's fingerprints are all over this loss. Were there some amazing Josh Allen holy cow moments in this game? Absolutely. Did I think the Bills were going to lose this game up until the Trey White pass interference? Nope. I thought the whole time it was their game. But Josh Allen, this was a game that was unacceptable by his very high standards. And it's okay to say that. Peyton Manning is an all-time great quarterback, and he has a half dozen of these playoff games. But I just think that people, the Josh Allen conversation at a national level is so exhausting because there's this idea that Josh Allen is protected and that he lives in this protective bubble, that Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and people want to make it about race, whatever. I'm just going to say the thing. Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson screw up. People think they get criticized. But when Josh Allen loses a playoff game, it's, oh, Josh Allen was perfect, but everybody else around him blew it for him. And after 13 seconds, boy, it was hard to argue that because Josh Allen gave his team the lead twice after the 2-minute warning, never saw the field again, and lost the game. But I think, as one of the biggest Josh Allen fans in the entire world, I have to sit here and say that he's been living a lot off of that 13 seconds game on his overall playoff reputation. His playoff numbers are insane. His playoff statistics are all-time great. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. But in the last 3 playoff losses, he hasn't been nearly as perfect as graphics on screens that show his statistics would lead you to believe. Last season against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, Sean McDermott's defense got a stop. Jordan Phillips got a sack that got Josh Allen and the offense the ball back. The game started off very, very sloppy because Josh Allen threw 2 very near interceptions that the Chiefs just happened to drop. The year before, another Chiefs loss, this one in Buffalo, people want to blame Matt Prater, Tyler Bass for missing a kick. The kick itself was a failure. You were down by 3. There was a minute left. They had Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Do you really want to sign up for tying the game with a minute left with Patrick Mahomes getting the ball back? The whole drive was about getting a touchdown and putting them away. And Josh Allen got too aggressive too early in the drive. Targeted Shakir when he should have gone for a crossing route. And Chris Jones made a great play to push Deion Dawkins in his lap. People want to bring up Diggs dropping the ball. Great. Josh Allen didn't do his part on that drive. He hasn't been perfect. And now he's going to be 30 and he still has nothing to show for it. No AFC championships and no Super Bowl wins. Those are hard to win. This was a hard game to win, but he made it a lot harder by making mistakes. And that's the most frustrating part about all this is the other side of the coin. Okay, so I mentioned the fact that there's a segment of people that think Josh Allen lives in a protective bubble. The other side of the coin are people that believe QB wins. And Josh Allen is an all-time choke artist. And Josh Allen just can't get it done. Josh Allen is John Starks for the Knicks who can't hit a shot in Game 7 of the finals. And that's just stupid. Josh Allen has amazing playoff moments in games that they have lost. The truth, as always, is in the middle. I beg you all to come to the sanity that's in the middle. But when Ryan Clark and Cam Newton say things like, hey, Josh Allen, it's your time, they are not flaming, they're not stroking a fire. They're just saying factual things. Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson weren't in the playoffs. You lost to Bo Nix. Go get it done. Don't fumble the ball before halftime. So I'm with you, Luka. Josh Allen has to wear this. Broke my heart to watch him in the post-game press conference yesterday. And I'm reminded of something Tim Graham says a lot, that you'd be surprised how many athletes don't care as much as fans. Excuse me 1 second. When you see Josh Allen, Deion Dawkins, Brandon Cooks crying, real tears after the game, I think Bills fans can at least be proud of the fact that you're not rooting for a team that's just there for the paycheck. You're not rooting that this team felt that loss. As miserable as we all are today, that it's infinitely more for those guys. But the conversation around Josh Allen has gotten insane on both sides. And it's nauseating. And Josh Allen is an all-time great quarterback. He's going to go down as the best quarterback in the history of the Buffalo Bills. And he probably has, 5 or 6 more cracks at this thing to get the Bills a Super Bowl. All of that being said, there is a very, very realistic possibility that we are going to be looking back on the Josh Allen era of Buffalo Bills football as one of the biggest missed opportunities in the history of the franchise. And that is nauseating to say. Luka, we have more to get to from this game. We are 45 minutes in. We obviously also want to touch a little bit on big picture stuff. What happens with Bean? What happens with McDermott? Anything else from this game specifically that you want to touch on? We've talked about Allen. What did you think of McDermott's day? I think we don't know what's going to happen with McDermott. If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said he's safer than safe. I don't know now. I truly don't. What did you think of McDermott's day?
I think McDermott had, it's a 2-part question or a 2-part answer. As a head coach, McDermott had a good day overall. I think as a head coach, man management as best as he could. I mean, you're dealing with scrap parts in certain position groups and things like that. Trying to, it really wasn't, you know, what's crazy is as a head coach in a game as crazy and tight as it was, how many times was there really a head coach decision on McDermott's side? And there really wasn't one. Obviously, that's generally because of decision making when it comes to kick a field goal rather than go for fourth down, and or go for fourth down rather than punt, depending on field position, game flow, blah blah blah. Right? There weren't many of those moments where McDermott had to make a tough decision or a decision at all, for that matter. And on top of it, it felt like he was fine as a head coach. As a defensive head coach, this is where I'm going to start having gripes and issues. As moronic as I believe Colin Cowherd is in the national media space, he says something about McDermott, one of the biggest McDermott haters out there. He says something about him all the time that drives me nuts, but it also drives me nuts because there's truth in it. When you look at head coaches, whether they're offensive or defensive, you need to also analyze what that strength does for them. You need to look at it as that should be your better half. That should be your stronger half. That should be the side of the ball that is more dependable. And I highlighted how the defense had a good, for the most part, second half and did the things that they needed to. But when you let Bo Nix finish in the fashion that he was, 26-46, which not the greatest completion percentage, but 279 and 3 scores, when you also are highlighted in those moments of ensuring players who are coming in hot, meaning they are coming in, or I should say cold in that manner, due to injuries sustained by players previously, and put them in the positions that you did. Lesser with Darnell Savage, I will say, because I think that was truly a recognition of Sean Payton, great play call design, things like that, where you are flowing everything one direction and then naturally get someone to tail off and go against flow, where you are, a backside safety truly needs to see that in his space. And if he recognizes it just a moment too late, which Darnell Savage absolutely does, it is open there for Bo Nix to hit that pass, which he does. But I highlight more the Dane Jackson situation. For McDermott and Babbage collectively to put their heads together following an injury and go, we're going to go man press here with Dane Jackson, and think that is the call. Everyone in the world, you said it before we went live, and this is not a spoiler or breaking news situation. Everyone in the world, everyone in the stadium, everyone watching the TV, everything. You see Trey White out, and all of a sudden it's Dane Jackson sitting there, and they are on the line of scrimmage pressing their man. You know where that ball is going. You know exactly what's going. It's a one-on-one play, and you know where that ball's going. And credit for whatever it's worth to Sean Payton and Bo Nix for hitting that pass to, I think that was was that Mims on that one. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing? What you can criticize Dane Jackson all you want. That is not putting a player in a position to succeed at all. Dane Jackson's who he is. You need to recognize that as a coach and a defensive coordinator. And a defensive mind like McDermott, if he hears whatever's being called in by Babbage and fucking agrees with that, you're insane. That is, you are putting your player in a position to fail. That is unacceptable. And you, as a head coach, being the defensive mind you are, needs to be capable and firm and outright understanding of, we're not doing that. This is not acceptable. We can't do that right now. I would love nothing more than, hey, you got Dane Jackson out there because one of your starting corners are out there, stuff like that. Let's soften up that side. Let's overload the zones on that side. Let's put a little bit more pressure on Christian Benford on the opposite. Let's put him a little bit more on an island. Let's protect that one side while we're evaluating Trey White. Let's recognize the discrepancy and issue that is that side of the field right now and make sure that you're mediating and limiting the pain that is probably going to come to that side of the field. Nope. Man press. Why? That is just head-scratching, mind-blowing stupidity. And that's where I'm starting to have a problem with McDermott when you look at that. And or, I've had a joke like this season. If we could go back and every time McDermott spent a defensive timeout to then evaluate and assess, I joked every time, well, that team's about to get a big play here. That team is about to set it up because it fucking happened again today. Burns a timeout. The concept is fair. Like, hey, look at formation, set up a defense. But how the fuck do you keep doing this and yet coming up with something that is terrible? Like, hey, it's almost, if you play Madden or college football, the one play I'm referencing here, it was almost like they did. I think in Madden, it used to be L1, protect the sticks. And you just had a bunch of dudes just floating on the sticks. Hey, ignore Cortland Sutton 5 yards behind you. Just make sure you sticks and forward. Hey, buddy, guess what? Cortland Sutton's a pretty good receiver, and Bo Nix is probably looking at him first. Let's make sure one guy is at least apparent and aware of him. And instead, Cole Bishop, I'm not blaming Cole Bishop for this because it was clearly defensive message as to what the assignments were. But there's a guy 5 yards behind you, and your safety squatting underneath on God knows what. Just little things like that agitate you, that it brings validity to a guy like Colin Cowherd to bring this full circle, where it's like, when you look at a head coach and you analyze, are they doing a good enough job? You need to look at their strengths. You look at Andy Reid, and Andy Reid obviously has that offense working as best as it possibly can with Mahomes under center. You look at look at Sean Payton. Sean Payton, an offensive coach, and he knows exactly when to take shots with a Bo Nix and when to not, when to capitalize on opportunities and when to just live to fight another day, and manages the offensive side of the game as best as he can. You look at McDonald. I'm probably butchering. There's so many McDaniels and McDonald's in this damn league. I can never remember. But in Seattle, the defense is absolutely number one. Between them and the Texans, I truly don't know who's the best. In my opinion, the Texans have a lot better high-end individuals, but I would say as a collective, there are a lot of dogs on that Seattle defense, and there's a real argument to be said that they are a more complete defense. You're gold compared to gold, but he is doing a great job operating there. And then the offense is doing the job that it's asked of from their OC to manage things. The head coaches that are finding success, Ben Johnson in Chicago, Jesus Christ. Sorry for anyone that takes offense to that. There is just, when you are McDermott and the side of the ball you are skilled at is fucking up too much. Mm-hmm. When are you going to finally realize that maybe it's just not good enough? And I respect McDermott as a player coach and a man management coach, and not true CEO, because I don't want to give him GM powers and things like that, but CEO of the coaching staff and players, at least of the roster provided. I respect him for that. And I think his game management has been better, especially comparative to 3-4 seasons ago. But we're at a point now where you need to take control out of his hands in the sense of play calling on the defensive side. And you need to take decision-making out of his hands in the sense of individual play-by-play situations, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. You need heads that are handling the offense, handling the defense, and making those things, and just running it through McDermott as things like that. If then from there, McDermott doesn't like what's going in from, let's say, an offensive or defensive side, he can have influence to, hey, change it up. I don't like it here. I want to control it more here. I want to be more aggressive here, whatever that is. But you are not making the end all decisions anymore when it comes to defensive play calling, offensive play calling, whatever. You need to have appropriate individuals in those positions making those decisions, because you are not good enough at your job. You are just not good enough at what you specialize at anymore. And I am not sitting here and saying these things like I want McDermott gone, because I am in a space right now where there is no better solution at the head coach position right now that I don't see where that answer is at this moment in time. On January 18th in the afternoon, I do not see where a better solution at quarterback is, or head coach is. It's like, where do you go from here? I don't know. But I can confidently say there has to be something better from an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator perspective. And you can absolutely have the conversation with McDermott and go, hey, we're going to get you a new GM. We're going to get you a new OC and DC. You are not going to have the control of those things as much as you felt like you had before, because you need to focus on just being the game management, player management, just overall roster management, head coach type, and let these guys do their fucking jobs, because what you have done in managing the defensive side is not good enough, time and time again. And for whatever fucking reason, the cherry on top is when you really think you want to put a stamp on things, you've actually fucked it up even more. So I think his performance yesterday was fine as a head coach. I'll even lean towards the good side, but there's the huge, huge asterisk on that. And that is when the defense needed to do things and it's not, early third to, early fourth, whatever. It's like, it just kept rearing its ugly head that it wasn't good enough. And I can fully subscribe to the personnel out there was part of an issue maybe, and whatever, but that's what you're supposed to specialize in. And you're not getting, say what you want about Joey Bosa, and you and I are right now in a headspace with him that we never want to see him again in a Bills uniform. But how the hell are you getting that out of Joey Bosa? When, earlier in the season, we were seeing more. Like, it felt like even the players that are good enough to do their jobs, you're not putting them in a place to succeed, but that's supposed to be what you're good at. I just don't get how all of those things can work.
Yeah. So I agree with almost everything you just said on McDermott. And I thought in a vacuum, the defensive performance yesterday was certainly good enough to win the game. Certainly. The offense, based on who they are, who they have, what you expect out of the different players on both sides of the ball, the offense played well below their standard, especially Allen and Cook, excuse me. But I do think, in my mind, you don't make a rash change or a massive change based off of a one-game sample size. So if Terry Pagula was thinking, well, I'm going to wait and see how the playoff game that we do lose, if we do lose one, goes, and then I'll decide if we fire McDermott, that would be short-sighted. I think based on yesterday, that wouldn't be like, if this was a court case, yesterday wouldn't be like a top piece of evidence I would bring to the table to fire McDermott, notwithstanding the situation you mentioned where they sat back and got beat on 3rd and 11 and then played man press with Dane Jackson. But I do think we have plenty of examples now of what happens to Sean McDermott defenses that aren't completely banged up, that do go against elite offenses in the playoffs and can't get stops. We've seen that against Patrick Mahomes. This was Bo Nix. This was a banged up Broncos receiving group. And so I do want to give him his flowers for a good defensive game plan, but this was not the high degree level of difficulty that I think we can expect the Bills to see in the future when they do try to get over the threshold again, against Lamar Jackson, against Joe Burrow, against Patrick Mahomes, against Drake May, when they play the high end offenses. And so I think when you look at it in totality, I am on the side of, I do think it's time to make a change. If I had to pick one, I would rather see the Bills move on from Brandon Beane. But I am as open as I have ever been to a complete house cleaning at One Bills Drive. And I would like to see them give somebody else the keys, both as a GM and a head coach, to build around this future Hall of Fame quarterback. And quite honestly, fix some of his mistakes in these moments. Just because, to put it simply, and this is a high bar. You didn't see Bill Belichick's quarterback making the dumb end of half plays that Josh Allen made yesterday in a playoff game. You just didn't. Luka, let's blow through game balls and game checks very quickly because I want to get to some future stuff. I know it's our favorite segment of the week, but I mean this is a unique episode. I'll just go very quickly. I'm going to give a game ball to Matt Prater. Again, guy comes up huge for the Bills, made all of his kicks, was injured in it. I thought Matt Prater was a huge signing for the Bills. Really saved their kicking game this season, despite missing several games with injuries, and was just money in the playoffs and was nails at the end of the game. And I thought of you whenever they lined up for the game winner because you told me very early in Matt Prater's journey with the Bills that he has a draw right.
He has a slight, yeah. He
A slight right
across the ball, yeah.
And when I saw where it was lined up, I felt as great as possible with that kick going in. So Matt Prater would be my game ball.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna break our rules. I'm gonna do 2 game balls because I just want to give a shout out, and I'm second. I'm going Dalton Kincaid and Dayon Walker. I think those 2 guys had great games. Kincaid, for all the talk of we need you to finally step up. End of last season, ball hits him in the hands, tough catch, but still hits him in the hands. You'd like to see him catch it. He made an incredible grab on the, I believe it was the last touchdown scored by the Bills. So from there. Great game, caught all the balls thrown to him, did everything you asked of him to do. Was even the key piece as to why Dawson Knox was as open as he was, that Allen could not hit late in the game with 10 seconds left, to then set up that Prater field goal. And then Dayon Walker, I mean, just monster performance. Dayon Walker just needs to not have these back issues that killed him in college come up as a pro, and he will be an absolute monster for this defense and in the league in general for years to come. I mean, he is clearly just, it's hard to get away from any other comparison due to his size and the way he plays, but he is what feels like another Calais Campbell in this league. He can absolutely be capable of that. It feels like with the small sample size we have seen, and he came up big today. I mean, having an interception in the manner that he did is just beautiful. I don't know how Bo Nix doesn't see a man of his size in the window that he was, but then if you watch the replay, it felt like Bo Nix almost did a heat check Matt Stafford like throw. Don't do that when you have a 6'6" or 7" guy, 6'7", in your face or around your face. So yeah, those are the 2 guys I give a game ball to.
All right. And then game check. I hope I don't steal this from you. Joey Bosa, again, just invisible out there. And this is more of like an entire playoff game check. Horrendous against the run against Jacksonville. Never saw an edge that he was willing to contain in the run game. Had a chance. I think it was he had an open shot on either Harvey or McLaughlin in the backfield and just whiffed on the tackle. All season long, I kept saying, like, put him in bubble wrap to the playoffs. Can't wait to see him in the playoffs. And it was nothing at all what I hoped it would be. And then the roughing the passer penalty, an all-time loser play from Joey Bosa. I'm not calling him a loser, but holy cow, if they didn't call Taron Johnson's PI penalty, Joey Bosa would be going down on the same level as Scott Norwood in just a all-time boneheaded, you cost your team the season play, and Norwood just missed a kick. Joey Bosa made a very, very stupid play in overtime that was completely avoidable, and for that he gets my game check.
Yeah, I mean, game check really has me tempted to give Josh Allen to it just because the highs and lows. But again, it's so hard to because you don't get there without him, even though you are there because of him. It's one of those true battles we discussed already. I'm actually going to go with Ray Davis. And one feels kind of fitting with how this season was. He was probably the number one named person for this award that we've done throughout this entire season. He also had some game balls in there. The reason he was getting game balls is now why I have him in at game checks. You are first team all pro returner, and you couldn't even sniff an impact when it comes to the return game. Some credit to the Broncos. It felt like their kickers on kickoffs was absolutely diming the 1 yard line every time he hit it. So you're forcing Ray Davis into very difficult situations to return it. But 5 returns on the day, averaging 26, no longer than 28. You're catching them on average at the 1. Do the math. Not good. You should be hitting the expected line for anyone that's worth it, I feel like, is the 30-yard line. If you're coming up short of the 30 time and time again, that is not good enough. And that was something that I believed going into the playoffs could actually show. I mean, I think it was the Steelers game or maybe the Bengals game. And there was a lot of games late in the season where it felt like something had happened in the return game. We have documented proof of saying this out loud on our show and stuff, that it felt like something was happening from the special teams coordination all the way down to the just Ray Davis figuring out the return game. Something was happening that it felt like that could actually make an impact, do things. I wanted to see him return the ball more often because of it, even if it was a couple yards deep in the end zone, because it was that impactful and game-changing potential. It was terrible today. I mean, during the game, it just zero impact, never able to even get kind of that positive return that you would like. There was one, I think he did get north of the 30, and that was just because the kickoff did not go to the 1 yard line. But again, still was just tackled as soon as he was approached, unable to find a seal, a lane, or even break a tackle to make an impact return. And then just really on top of it all, once again, not a single carry on the day. He did have a crucial first down in overtime to keep the chains moving. But that's the only thing really there. And, you know, my other candidate for what it's worth would have been Keon Coleman. He did score a touchdown. It's hard to say game check without, to an individual with it, but also, you're lucky to have a holding call on a play where Josh Allen hits you square in the fucking hands and you drop that thing like it's a brick hitting it. That image to me is why you move on from Keon Coleman this offseason. That right there. I mean, you cannot ask for any better situation than Josh Allen, who I talked about earlier in this episode, being incapable of lasering balls to the level it feels like he normally can. That was one of them. He hits you square in the hands, in the diamond, and you look like a bumbling idiot. You look like 3 years ago Gabe Davis alligator arming at this shit, although it wasn't alligator arms. I mean, it was just hands there, ball hits ground, and you got bailed out that even if you caught it, there was going to be a holding call. But if you catch that, you actually get still another crack at it because you caught the fucking ball.
Yeah.
What are we doing? So luckily for you, you scored a touchdown that it's really hard for me then to give you this game check award, but I want to absolutely highlight that because if I see number 0 being a fucking clown out there for this team more, and ironically enough, we still have to give away his signed helmet, Josh. I don't know if I'm going to do that anymore because I don't know who the hell wants it, but got to do it. It's one of those things that, boy, you got bailed out and I'm giving this to Ray Davis instead because holy fucking shit.
Yeah, I think Keon Coleman's played his last game as a Buffalo Bill. I did want to mention, who was I just thinking of? Oh, Cam Lewis played a great game. I was very impressed with him. He was all over the field. And some of these guys, like Prater, like Shaq Thompson, like Brandon Cooks, came up really big. And it's hard to, Trey White, you can put in that bucket. Poirier, you can put in this bucket, even though he didn't play much in the playoffs. That's the good with Bean. He was good at finding those, dollar store options, but it's the reason why you have to go to the dollar store is when you keep mismanaging your premium assets. All right, Luka, it's so tempting just to be like, all right, let's spend the next 2 hours talking about the plan ahead. But the unfortunate reality is now we have 9 months, 8 months to kick it all around. And there'll be a draft along the way. There'll be free agency. There'll maybe be coaching and GM changes. We already know Aaron Cromer's not coming back. We'll see what happens with Joe Brady. I think this is a good place to leave it. We're still kind of sifting through our thoughts. I'll just say, get it on record. It's a podcast that, I'm a fan, but I'm of the appetite to change head coaches and I'm of the appetite to change GMs. I think it's time. I don't think you want to look back on this Josh Allen era of football and feel like that you didn't look under every stone. I think the fact that ultimately, I think this season ending the way it did, despite what happened in the game yesterday, looks worse on Brandon Beane than anybody else because of the opportunity that was there for the Bills, because of the lack of aggression at the trade deadline to boost this team when people could see this opportunity kind of coming from a mile away. And I think it would be almost hilarious to non-Bills fans if after this loss, after Brandon Beane's rant on WGR, which turned into a meme pretty quickly. If the Bills just run it back and Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and Joe Brady are all three, and Bobby Babich if you want them, all four are in the same exact roles next season. I would like to see a complete house cleaning, all four changed. I think it's time. McDermott, this loss is not on him specifically, but you've had enough chances now with the Golden Goose, and it's time for some fresh eyes and fresh thoughts in that building. And I'm very much willing and open for a coaching change. At the time of recording, Kevin Stefanski was announced as the head coach of Atlanta. I would have been interested in him. John Harbaugh was announced as the head coach of the Giants. I would not have been interested in him. Mike Tomlin has pretty much told anybody that will listen that he's taking the year off, but it's important to note that even if you wanted Mike Tomlin, you would probably have to give draft compensation to the Steelers because he's still their property because he did step away. He wasn't fired. I have no interest in Mike Tomlin. I like Mike Tomlin. I don't think he fixes what the Bills need. My favorite idea is one that Luka and I talked about off the air. I think it may have actually been Luka who brought it up first on our conversation, is Clint Kubiak. I like his offensive philosophy. I like the idea of an offensive-minded head coach, and I like what he would bring to the table, and the fact that Josh Allen would be linked up with an offensive mind with no threat of him leaving via offensive coordinator to head coach role that we saw with Brian Dable. All right, Luka, how about you? What do you want this offseason? I know it's a loaded question, but of the big four spots, where's your appetite?
I think the discussion we're having here is truly this is not a due to this season, not even due to the last two seasons. This is a collective. This is a collective conversation due to the Josh Allen era. We can, for McDermott, of course, there is the 1 year breaking the drought, getting into the playoffs with Tyrod, and it was a great coaching job on his part, in the sense of doing that to us, truly cement and establish the culture that he wanted to present here. And credit to him, in a situation where it was recognized they needed to get a franchise quarterback, he did not let them cloud the judgment of wins and getting something else that was greater within the fan base, and truly achieve that thanks to a little bit of luck. And that for me is a prime example as to how to build culture and success that's sustainable for an organization. Now, there is a cap to that success, clearly, as we've now seen, being years separated from that. But it seems to beat the whole philosophy of maximize picks, tanking, and all of a sudden letting that losing culture seed into the ever so cracks of your organization that seem to be not able to be cleaned. Now, to the question, I would love to see, I would say, an overall house cleaning. I would say I subscribe less to the thought, though, of removing McDermott, only because my caveat to it is, if you can have a bigger picture conversation with him being, we like you as a head coach, we just need to have direction provided elsewhere when it comes to defensive decisions and, whatever, like I discussed previously in this episode, if you can get him on board to truly just become that overseeing head coach style type of individual and let and manage an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and let them do their job. And you now then actually take on more of a one-on-one with your GM, understand the philosophy you want, go find a GM that wants to be more aggressive for you. I think McDermott fully recognizes that this player and personnel stuff is not to the standard he would like. And this, my number one caveat going, I can respect what Bean has done in a lot of things, but I am absolutely full-heartedly fucking done with spending every blue chip asset possible on defensive line and defensive players and all this bullshit that we're seeing to just have continuous performances in big moments where those things need to show up. And you're having your 4th round pick, Dalen Walker, be the highlight of it all. And your free agency assets are coming up short in those big moments and or can't stay healthy. And you're just left there going, boy, I would have loved to spend $15 million on a decent receiving option instead of Joey fucking Bosa. Like, I would have loved to have done things differently with this time and time again. This is not a just this year thing. This year is just another of the long line. The last time we saw Bean do anything aggressive for the offensive side of the ball, it was bring in Stephon Diggs. That I can confidently say that. You know, you can point to Nyheim Hines if you really want as an offensive trade, but boy, is that not being aggressive, in my opinion. That is just at the time addressing something where like, hey, let's bring in a different, fun gadget weapon. And then, oh, by the way, you had an offense coordinator who had no fucking clue how to use them and didn't because of it. And luckily for us, I guess, Nyheim Hines at least was a decent returner and provided one special moment for us. But it's one of those things where Bean is the number one, gotta go. And Joe Brady, I pray to God someone wants to hire you. I don't think they have the balls and stones to fire you. I don't think Josh Allen wants to see you go, but you need to be gone. Your creativity or lack thereof is something that drives me insane. We had a conversation, and this feels like an appropriate time to do this before we sign off, that I asked you a question, and I think it actually stumped you in the moment. And I go, how often do you see Josh Allen on designed rollouts? How often do you see Josh Allen be put? I talked about defensive side and putting players in a position to succeed. That can include Josh Allen, folks. Yes, is he successful at a lot of things because he's fucking good? Of course. But you can still put him in those positions to succeed by design. You can still highlight these things. Look at Andy Reid with Mahomes, man. He fucking knows exactly what to do with his quarterback to get the absolute most out of him, even with substandard weapons around him. And you have Josh Allen. And the number one thing we hear about with Josh Allen is keep him in the pocket. Don't let him use his legs. Don't let him get in space. Don't let him roll out. Things like that. Because, of course, Josh Allen is he has two absolute monster weapons to him, his legs and his arms, or his arm. And it's like, why not do things by design that allow you to create the space and opportunity to put defenses in a bind where you are rolling out and you have to worry about three things: Josh Allen's legs, the underneath flat option, and probably the intermediate to deep option. And oh, by the way, if you just want to add a little bit of spice to it all, let's have someone on the backside, just on an absolute deep crosser, skinny post, whatever, that if Allen's feeling a heat check and or the opportunity, he can fucking sling it. Whether it's against him or for him, guess what? Josh Allen's good enough that he can hit that. So even if you want to roll out to the left, he could probably still hit that pass if he's in good health. So you don't see that. Anything rollout, it's designed weak side coming back, hit the flat. It's a one route play. And any receiver that's running downfield, watch it. They're turning heads and just waiting to block. That's all they're doing. There is no available option otherwise, because by design, it is a one route play. That is fucking crazy. You have Josh fucking Allen, and that's what you do by design. Everything else is, hey, Josh, I'm calling this, and a 13 personnel, I'm calling this. Just find it for me. That is irresponsible and stupid. You are not good enough to do your job, in my opinion, with the weapon at your disposal that is 17. And then Bobby Babich is just a talking head for Sean McDermott. If I want to take this organization and Terry Pegula more seriously, we will see Babich fired. That is where I lean with Bobby Babich. Do I expect it to happen? No, because if McDermott's here, that means Babich is here, in my opinion, because I think McDermott has a lot of respect for Babich. Babich has a lot of respect for McDermott. That is the most important thing. For anyone that's beating the drum for Dable to return, you have something in store for you when it comes to the relationship that is Sean McDermott with Brian Dable. Yeah. So you're not going to see something like that. And McDermott wants someone he trusts. If I want to take Terry and the higher ups more seriously, they will have that serious conversation with McDermott. They're going to be like, we want someone that's more credible, responsible, and capable of doing that defensive coordinator job. You had Leslie Frazier in here and things were actually operating better because at least you had two minds who truly knew how to understand and run an defense. Babich, respect to you for what you've done as a position coach. You are not capable to be a DC, and it's pretty clear and apparent. So, my ideal offseason is Joe Brady and the coordinators of both are gone. McDermott, if he's willing to accept that, I would happily have him stay because, again, I don't see where the better option is at offensive coordinator. I will accept it, though, if they were to just completely clean house. What would be an unacceptable offseason to me is Brandon Beane remaining in his post. That is the baseline. I have respected a lot of things that he's done. He has found absolute gems in the rough. Like you said, he's bargain shopped and found those day 3 guys that the list is incredible. And that takes a lot of trust in your scouting staff and you. But what you have done with blue chip and free agency is unacceptable to this point for years. That is not good enough. And that is why the ball has fallen short time and time again with a Josh Allen team, because the blue chip options are not there. And you're Aaron Rodgersing him in Green Bay. You are spending all these assets on defense, and the defense is still not good enough to get the job done for you. So what the fuck have you done other than waste those things on things that could have been better used for your premier Hall of Fame out of world quarterback to get it over the line? I just, it's unacceptable. And that's where this offseason needs to kind of start, we'll call it.
One last thing on coordinator. Joe Brady gets a lot of credit for developing this great running game in Buffalo, and it has been great. But I would just say Aaron Kromer, man. Again, run game coordinator. I'd just be very careful how much credit you give Joe Brady when Aaron Kromer was in the building. That's one thing where I will leave that. Just for fans like us, it hurts. It's gonna hurt. There's no magic words that can make it go away. This is sports. During the 17-year drought, the pain was not getting in the tournament. And then when you get in the tournament, it hurts when you lose. And when you lose year after year without ultimately getting the Super Bowl, it hurts even more. And all we can do is hope for a better tomorrow. But just keep in mind, it's sports. It's not life. Luka and I are going to sign off here. He's got family he's going to go see. I have family I'm going to go see. But it doesn't take away from the fact that we put a lot into this, not just as content creators, but I'm saying the collective we, you listening as fans. It hurts and it stinks. And it's hard not to feel sorry for yourself and feel like, is it ever going to be my day as a fan to see my team win just once? And all you can do is hope that someday it is. But it's just sitting here right now, hard to imagine a better look at it they'll ever get than they had this year. And they let it slip through their fingers, and they only have themselves to blame. All right, Luka. We generally, during the season, have a Wednesday show. I think that is still TBD. Some of that will probably be determined by what the rumblings are out of the Bills as far as coaching changes. It could be as simple as Luka messages me on Wednesday and says, "Hey, I just need to vent about the Bills again." And I'm saying, "Cool, I'm there." But I think we'll probably know something about the Bills. And I would say that if McDermott or Beane are gone, that's reason for a show for sure. But if not, there's a chance that we take off from the Wednesday show. And, stay tuned to our Twitter account, because now that we are in the off season, the podcast schedule will change up a little bit, and we'll be pretty transparent about that. We have not talked about that. We did not plan for this. We were full systems go until the Super Bowl. But just stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter. We're always on there. We'll reach out to you there. Thanks again to everybody who joined us this year. This was our biggest year for YouTube growth, Spotify growth, Twitter growth, everything. We can't appreciate you all enough for taking this little hobby that we started and turning it into something where we get to reach out to, almost 11,000 people on Twitter, and depending on the week, thousands of people listening to shows, halftime shows, live shows, etc. So for that, we are grateful. And for the Bills, we'll just hope that next year is our year. For Luka, I am Josh McCarty. The Bills season comes to an end, but this show is not over. We will see you next time, whenever that is, on Bills Chat.